Richard Skipper celebrates. Every show is a celebration. Richard Skipper celebrates the best in entertainment. Each show, Richard delivers the artists you love, showcasing what makes them unique. Never gossipy. The antidote to a sometimes hectic world. Now, here's your host, Richard Skipper.
Happy Tuesday, everyone, and welcome to the latest edition of Richard Skipper Celebrates. What are you celebrating today? For those of you who are here for the first time, welcome. My show is all about celebrating life, celebrating art, celebrating artists, celebrating each other. And we have to celebrate each other, especially in these very dark times. And I am so excited about today's guest. When I first heard that Rob Shuter had a new book out, well, naturally, I thought that it was going to be a gossipy tome. It was going to be tell-all. And I was very surprised to find out that it was actually a self-help book. And I have to admit, self-help books are actually my favorite genre of books. I like them because I always find that there's something to glean from them. Actually, anyone who knows my story knows that it was a self-help book, The Magic of Believing by Claude M. Bristol, that brought me to New York. If you don't know that story, look it up, because that was the book that brought me to New York at the age of 18. Well, today I'm going to bring him right on so we can jump right into this. And Rob, I want to ask you, first of all, welcome to the show. What are you celebrating?
That's a really good question. Today, I've got to admit, I'm celebrating my book. I found out a couple of hours ago that we're number 11 on Amazon, which is totally beguiling, surprising, exciting. I knew I had a big enough audience to get me in the top 100. I knew my friends, we call them naughties, would come forward and buy some copies of the book, and they certainly did, which I'm very grateful for. However, something extraordinary happened on Wednesday morning. I was a guest on a radio show, Z100 with Elvis Duran, which is the number one pop radio show, top 40 radio show, beating Ryan Seacrest and Howard Stern. And so I was meant to be on the show for about 3 or 4 minutes, which is sort of a long segment in this world of publicity and promotions and marketing that we do. I was there for half an hour.
So fasten your seatbelts. We're on for an hour today.
I was wary of this. I'm not sure I'm that interesting. But in any case, my friend Elvis, we talked for 30 minutes about the book, about our friendship, about things we have in common, about our values together. And I left the studio, my phone blew up, and it was my publisher who told me we'd sold out, that you couldn't get this book. They'd sold out, and so they were rushing out a second printing, and thankfully they did that awfully quickly, and you can get it again now. And we shot up to number 11 on the charts, and it was thrilling, Richard. It was thrilling. People like me don't do this. The school that I went to in an industrial town in Birmingham, England, sort of down on its luck. I don't think everybody at that school read a book, let alone wrote one. And so this is just an extraordinary moment. I'm pinching myself, and I'm starting to enjoy it. I was overwhelmed, and now I'm really enjoying it. Thank you for inviting me on your show.
I want to interrupt you for something you just said. You just said people like me don't do this. And I want to stop you right there, because people like you do this. I'm taking advice from your own book. We do this. It's ordinary people who make these things happen. And as I said, as I'm reading your book this morning, I had a stress test, believe it or not. And as I am reading your book, getting ready to go in for the stress test, it really, I mean, I was practically jumping out of my seat because there were so many things as I'm reading your book. I read this chapter again this morning as I was getting ready to go in about kindness. And especially right now with the world that we are living in, where we live in a very violent country, more so than any other country in the world, where people are quick to cut people off. And there's a word that I want to eliminate from our vocabulary. And I hope that you will agree with me on this. And that's, I want to take back the word Karen, because I don't know about you, but I know a lot of wonderful Karens. Yeah. And the fact that little girls are being attacked in school now because they are called Karen by their parents. And now that word has gotten such a negative connotation. Let's be kind to one another.
Let's be really, really kind. 20 minutes before I jumped on to talk to you, I had an interview with Vanity Fair, which is sort of still a very prestigious, fancy publication. And I know who I am. I know what I do for a living. I'm a gossip columnist. I get it. And so for my book to be in Us Weekly or TMZ or Radar, I sort of get that. It makes sense. So when Vanity Fair called to interview me for this book, I was a little bit surprised, thrilled. It has an enormous audience that I would not normally reach. Let me tell you why it happened. About 15 years ago, I was the only celebrity gossip columnist at the Huffington Post. And there was this really great young photo editor in the office called Maggie. And I'd always be kind to Maggie and would talk about gossip and entertainment news and reporting. That kindness of 15 years ago paid off today, because Maggie is now a senior editor at Vanity Fair. And Maggie said to me, I've waited 15 years to be kind back to you. And so she did it with this story. You never know where people are going to end up. You never know where you're going to end up. You have the baton of power for a really short period of time. So when you have it, or even when you don't have it, be kind. And it's not just the right thing to do. And I talk about this in the book. It's the smart thing to do. Smart people are kind. We can all help each other. Be kind to one another. I have a radio show, a morning podcast on my heart. And I got that because 10 years ago, I had a nighttime show, and it was on Mark Cuban's network, and it was set in a bar, and I couldn't really get any big celebrities to come by. So I invited a lot of media personalities, and one of the persons that came by the show was Elvis Duran. I did not know that Elvis was so powerful in radio. I didn't know he had this huge audience. I was just kind to him. I wasn't a fool. I was just a kind guy. And then that has led to so much more. Be kind to people, and I promise you, it will pay off. It's smart to be kind. It's good to be kind, but it's also smart.
Well, one thing that really surprised me this morning, anyone who knows me, when I was doing my live shows prior to COVID, I always ended my show with this comment, and you'll hear it today as well, because I always end every show by telling everyone to go out and be nice to somebody else without expecting anything in return. Little did I know until reading your book that Princess Diana always said that. Also, Princess Diana, God bless her, if she had lived, we are the same age. Her life tragically cut short. And she probably was one of the kindest people that walked this planet.
It was amazing. Doing the research for the book, I knew that celebrity was my wheelhouse. I knew that was my way into this book. I didn't want to do a tell-all book, but I wanted to tell everything about these extraordinary people that I got to work with. And I think they'll be really happy with the results. But doing the research, I came up with lots and lots of different celebrity quotes. And I think it sort of lightens the chapter. So after I make a point, there's a celebrity quote to hopefully reinforce it, and then we can move on to something new. And so after a couple of paragraphs about kindness, I found this quote from Diana saying, be kind to one another and expect nothing in return. If you're kind because you want something back, it's not really being kind. You've got to be kind to one another. Princess Diana too also told those young boys that when they meet somebody, everyone's going to remember that. they might not remember us, but we will remember them. And the same, I think, is true with Princess Diana. Every interaction she had in her life, people will remember that. She might not have, but everybody that interacted with her will. And so she said she couldn't not be kind, because the amount of power she had, she could ruin someone's day, their month, their year, if she was snappy. And so it makes me cross when I see celebrities meeting their fans, people that love them, and they're not that kind to them. And so, no, the quote from Princess Diana.
And the flip side of that, I do want to say to everyone out there who has had a bad experience with a celebrity, you never know what their morning was like prior to you meeting them.
Right.
They're human beings. They have their bad moments. We all do. You never know what bad news they've just gotten prior to your having that encounter with them. So give them a little slack as well. So I just want to put that out there.
Yes.
You have an anecdote in the book that also stood out with me. And then I want to go back and, cover a little ground with you. And that's when you volunteered many years ago for the gay men's health crisis.
Yeah.
And something that was said to you about there could have been many reasons why you were volunteering, but the ultimate outcome. Do you know what I'm referring to?
Entirely. So when I first came to America, I didn't have work papers. So I was here on a student type visa. So I couldn't get a job. And so I didn't want to just sit around. And so I volunteered. And one of the places I started to work was Gay Men's Health Crisis. And I was awful at it. So I answered the hotlines. It was meant to be an anonymous hotline, but I was the only one there with a British accent. So whenever you got me, you knew who you were talking to. But I remember the guy that ran the program said, I don't care why you are here today. You could be here to meet cute guys. You could be here because you want to impress people. You could be here because you want to make yourself feel better. He said, I don't care why you're doing it, because the end result is the same. You are helping. And I think kindness is one of those things that is so easy to achieve. If I want to lose 60 pounds, that's really hard. If I want to be a pilot and fly a plane, it's going to take me years. If I want to be a doctor, lots and lots of studying. If I want to be kind, I can become kind within a second. How? By being kind. Being kind makes you kind, and you don't need any training, any reason, any excuse. You can do it right now.
Well, I want to go back for a moment, Rob. And what I also love, in addition to you encompassing all of these stories in your book with celebrity anecdotes, celebrity quotes, and the non-celebrity quotes from those people who have watched listened to your podcast and followed you over the years, and their stories from notes and messages that have been sent to you. But I want to go back to the 5-year-old Rob Shuter, because to me, the 5-year-old self is that 5-year-old self. And you talk about this web that we create in our lives, of the people in our lives. I love the fact, and I truly believe this, there are so many acquaintances in our lives. I remember, for example, when I reached the point of having 5,000 friends on Facebook, which is the ultimate goal. And then you think, oh my God, there are 5,000 people out there who love me. They really like me, as Sally Field would say. And then you realize that sometimes that can be an albatross around your neck. But that there are really, if you've got 5 of those, out of those 5,000, who truly are the people that you reach out to on a weekly or a daily basis, just to say, I've got your back. I'm thinking of you. I want to know, just see how you're doing. I want to go back to that 5-year-old self. Before you start school, peer pressure starts getting added on you as to what students think you should be or should not be. What teachers start layering on you as to what you should be or should not be. Can you take us back, and you cover some of this in your book, about the 5-year-old Rob Shuter?
I was a really happy young guy. I was really happy. I was really positive. My arm was damaged at birth. So for almost most of my childhood, my arm was in a sling or a plaster. It was like Evan Hansen before Evan Hansen was Evan Hansen. And I was a really happy guy. And even being gay was not something, I knew I was different, but it wasn't something that made me sad. I had a really lovely childhood. And then I lost that guy. I forgot who he was. I forgot who I was. Life comes along and put so many things in your way that it sort of makes you forget who you really are. And part of this book was figuring that out. Who are you? Who are you? And when you strip away all the values other people have given you, all the opinions you've taken on, all those negative voices in your head telling you you couldn't, you shouldn't, you're not good enough. Once you get rid of those voices, you can go back to being who you really are. And the good news, what I found out writing the book, is that all those negative voices are a lie. They're not telling you the truth. What they're doing is repeating something somebody else told you. It's an echo. And so don't believe them. It wasn't true when it was said, and it's certainly not true now. And so I surround myself now with people that root for me, that cheer me on. We all deserve that great squad. And the only way you get it is by building it. And so, yes, do I have lots of people on social media following me? It's exciting, yes, but I really, really have about 5 friends. And these are people that I check in with every day. We text each other, we say nice things to each other, we call each other. And so I think have that small group of friends and be honest with yourself. The difference between a friend and an acquaintance, and the scale of friendship changes too. It slides up and down, and be aware of that. The whole book is about being really honest, not just with who you are, but how you fit into your world, this web we've created. I like to think of myself as a spider at the center of my own web. And so I'm really truthful with myself now, but I do think I've gone back to being that 5-year-old kid. I found joy, I found the happiness, I found the love. And so
I know that you've got that 5-year-old self on your Instagram page, but do you keep that picture of that 5-year-old self nearby?
It's on my Instagram page. I know who that little boy is. I miss that little boy, and yeah, it's an inspiration, but it's not just visually with me. I'm not the most visual person. I know because of your career and what you've done, visuals are so important. Even the amazing set that you're sitting on now, it's so gorgeous. For me, it's never been visual. It's always been words. So I had to come up with the 4 words. And so instead of looking at a picture each morning now, when I brush my teeth, I say my 4 words. Before I go to bed at night, I say my 4 words.
Don't give them away yet. We're going to get to those 4 words.
If I'm at Starbucks and I get the wrong cup of coffee and I get annoyed, I can say my 4 words. It's literally your solution, your answer is just 4 seconds away. It's 4 words away. So throughout the day, I will repeat over my 4 words. When I'm in the back of a taxi, running late, I'll remind myself who I am. So some people, it's visual. With me, it was definitely words. And so I know if I've had a bad day because I've said my words 20 times, but they always work. They always work.
One of the things that I love, you talk about those 5 friends, but there's also a 6th friend.
Yeah, most important.
And that's the most important friend. And let's talk about that most important friend.
I learned that I said things to myself that I would never say to a friend. I'm not a cruel guy. I would never, ever be that rude to somebody I loved. I'd never be that judgy, that critical to somebody I loved. And yet I was saying it to myself all the time. I was telling myself that I wasn't good enough, that I wasn't good looking enough, that my damaged arm made me a freak, that being gay made me somebody that would never fit in. I would never say that to a friend. And then I realized, hey, you are a friend. In fact, you're the best friend you're ever gonna have. And the word that really helped me with this is important. It's a word we don't use a lot. I forgot that I was important. And now I remind myself all the time that I'm not only important, I'm essential. I'm my best friend. Some people might think that's egotistical. I say it is the most important thing. Learn to like yourself. Learn to love yourself, because you can't get away from yourself. Even my 5 friends who I adore dearly, a couple of them get on my nerves every so often, and I can leave, or I can take a little bit of a break. I can't take a break.
Well, I love what RuPaul says. Yeah. And RuPaul says, well, if you're not going to be kind to yourself, how can you be kind to anyone else? Yes. Yes. And, but you also send notes to yourself.
Yeah. So we got into this habit, me and my friends, of being involved in everyone's lives, of texting each other little notes. And it doesn't really matter what you say, because the fact you do it is far more important than anything you could possibly say. And so one night, by mistake, I accidentally texted myself a note instead of my friend.
It was not a mistake.
I meant to send it to Donnie, and I know he was having a tough day. I was having a bit of a tough day too. So I knew Donnie was having a tough day. So I sent him a little note telling him how much I loved him, how special he is, and how important he is. And I went to sleep. And I woke up in the morning, and there on my phone was a text. And it was from me to me. And even though I meant it for Donnie, I actually needed it myself. And so now I text myself a note all the time, maybe even as much as like every night. Text yourself a little note. Remind yourself that you are great. And then don't open it. Wait until the morning, and the first message you get of the day is going to be a really good one.
Now, there's something that I picked up from your book that I'm now implementing into my life. There's something that I've been doing for several years, and I don't even know where I got this from. But when I get up in the morning and I sit down on my desk, the first hour of each day, I call my hour of power. And I get a great book.
Mm-hmm.
This is the one that I've been starting with now. It's my hour of power. And that first hour is devoted to this book. Another great artist, writer out there, Julia Cameron, The Artist Way. I do my morning pages every morning and implement this book. But one of the things that now is every hour on the hour could be another show. It's another chapter.
Yeah, I actually learned it from Jennifer Lopez, who I worked with for years. You know, every New Year's Eve, we make a wish, we close our eyes, and we reset our lives. And I think overall, it's quite helpful to do. I sort of wondered, well, why am I waiting? Why am I waiting till New Year's Eve to do this? I can do this every day. And so then I think a lot of us too, when we're having a bad day, we go to bed and we say we're going to have a better day tomorrow. What I figured out with the help of J-Lo, of Jennifer, was we can do this whenever we want. So now I think of my life as a TV show, literally blocked out into hours. It's an hour episode, and at the top of each hour, there's a new show that starts. And so if I'm having a bad 10 minutes, I know in 50 minutes, it's going to be gone. And so I literally now reset my life when the clock strikes 12. It sounds like Cinderella, doesn't it? But literally every hour of my life now, I hit the refresh button. And this means I cannot procrastinate for more than, that's the maximum 60 minutes. I can't be cross now for more than an hour. I can't be lazy for more than an hour. Every hour I start a new chapter of whatever I have to do that day. And it's made me so productive. It's made me get so many things done. And it's also too made my day so much healthier mentally, because if you cut me up in traffic or if you annoy me in the street, I can hold on to that for only an hour, and then I have to let it go. Are you really having a bad day? Or are you the one that's making it a whole day affair? It's not really a bad day. It's a bad moment that you turned into the whole day. Don't do that.
Absolutely. And I think it's wonderful. Now let's talk. And I have to show you what I have here on my computer.
That's very awesome.
You may not believe me, but so let's go through these words. So, but before we get to the words, let's talk first of all about that turning moment when you were really down and you are in the background, Viola Davis, we love you, love you, love you, love you, love you. And you hear these magic words that, you know, from a moment in a film, The Help.
Mm-hmm.
And that moment, that innocuous little moment there, not as innocuous as you may think, changed your life.
Changed everything. So I was working in a PR office with some huge stars, but when you work around people that big, personalities that dramatic, and they don't need to be famous. If you have people in your life with huge personalities, very domineering people who I genuinely like. I like people with a lot of personalities. You can lose yourself. Day after day, month after month, year after year, I was doing this. I pretty much lost myself. I was drinking too much. I was going out way too late at night. I just wasn't happy. I was bloated. I'd spend the mornings with a hangover. I'd look in the mirror. I wouldn't recognize myself anymore. And on a particularly sad morning, I remember crawling out of bed. I didn't know how I got home the night before. I was blacking out drunk, and the TV was on in the bedroom, probably from the night before. I probably hadn't turned it off. And I was brushing my teeth, not recognizing the guy in the mirror. And I heard in the background a moment from The Help. And what I heard is, you are smart, you are kind, you are important. And it just stopped me in my tracks because I knew those words. I didn't know how I knew them, but I knew those words. And the reason they connected with me is we had a rule at my PR office that every celebrity, we had to know who they were in just 4 words. So for Jennifer Lopez, I had her 4 words on Post-it notes stuck to my computer screen. I had the 4 words for Diddy. I had the 4 words for Alicia Keys. I had the 4 words for Jon Bon Jovi. And those 3 words, just 3 words that I heard on the TV set, reflected these words that I had for my client. And I figured out pretty fast, looking at the cards, looking at the Post-it notes, that every single word that made these celebrities so extraordinary fell into those buckets. One of their words always meant they were important. One of their words always meant they were kind. And another word, all of them fit into the smart bucket. And that's how this book started. I realized that if we could take that technique, that skill of knowing who we are in just 4 words, if we could bring that into our lives, then we would be successful. It's very hard, though, to ask people, what are your 4 words? Are you loyal? Are you silly? Are you funny? Are you happy? So in the book, I give you 3 of those words. I give you those words. You are smart. You are kind. You are important. And if you can make those 3 words part of your 4 words, you're going to be successful.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk about kindness. We talked a little bit about this before. You've already mentioned some of the people. You know, you started out as a publicist. You've worked as a personal assistant for people. You've covered so many areas in this business, and you are so. The word that I think of when I think of you, maybe this is one of your 5th word, 6th word, is ubiquitous. You are everywhere. I think of you as a household word. I am a huge fan of you. When I see you, I know that I'm going to hear some great sometimes. Maybe you'll have a scoop for us today. I don't know. But I want to ask you along the way, and I'm all about celebrating. That's who I am. That's what I do. I'm all about celebrating people. Who are the people along the way, and some of them you've already mentioned, that have been kind to you, who have paved the way for who you are today?
Yeah, one of them is Jennifer Lopez. Like she taught me kindness. She taught me how to be a publicist. She was paying me and I should have been paying her. She taught me how the business works. Like, it's easy to dismiss somebody like a J-Lo really quickly. Not only is she talented, she knows exactly who she is. And one of her words in the book, the whole chapter is about J-Lo and being kind. And what Jennifer taught me is to be kind to yourself. Acceptance is the cornerstone of kindness. And if you accept yourself, if you are comfortable in your own skin, then you can be kind to yourself. And that was something that was a really real revelation to me. You got to know who you are. Like, for a long time there, other celebrities didn't like J-Lo. She popped up on the scene long before the Kardashians, long before ladies with big bottoms were celebrated. And so she came out and was unapologetically her, in the same way that maybe Eliza Minnelli or a Cher might be, the most outrageous fashion. I remember being with her when stylists would try to tone her down, would try to make her look more like Julia Roberts. And she was not being disrespectful to Julia, but Julia was not J-Lo. She likes the glitter, she likes the glamour, she likes the hoop earrings. And so she was always honest about herself, and she was kind to herself. And she didn't care what other people thought. She'd always say, that's their opinion. It's not a fact. And the only person that has 100% of all the information about you is you. So you make those decisions. Being fearless is about being kind. Jennifer was fearless. And so not only somebody that was my boss, somebody that I worked with, somebody that really was a mentor. The reason I'm so good at this now is because I'm not frightened. I don't get nervous. I really don't. I come prepared.
Mm-hmm.
I don't get nervous about stuff. And that's because I know who I am. I know what I can do. I know what I can't do. I'm going to be on the Today Show on Monday talking about the book. Now, if they asked me if I wanted to host a fashion segment, I'd pass. It's just not who I am. I'm not a fashion guy. If they asked me to host a cooking segment, I would pass. It's not who I am. Know who you are. Stay with who you are. Be unapologetic about who you are. And like J-Lo, you'll find success.
There are two thoughts that I have on that. First of all, my grandmother, may she rest in peace. My grandmother always used to say, what people think of you is none of your business. I love that thought. And also, one of my favorite thoughts is to stay in your lane and keep your blinders on. I mean, I know, there are a lot of people out there who do what I do, and they're wonderful. And I tune in and I watch them. But I know what I do, and I know what I do, and I stay in my lane, and I hope that people resonate with that.
Yeah, there's a difference too about picking what's popular and picking what you like, and they're two very different things. I always feel bad for people when I go to restaurants and I hear them ask the waiter, what's the most popular dish? And I want to say, no, it's none of my business, but I want to say, no, don't pick the most popular dish. Pick the dish you want. Growing up at school, I loved the sound of music. I love musical theatre. Nobody in my class was listening to a nun singing on a hill, spinning around. They were listening to Michael Jackson and Madonna. So the popular music was Madonna. It wasn't what I was listening to, but that didn't matter to me. Don't pick what's popular. Pick what you like. And like Jennifer, she never, ever changed who she was to be accepted. Be who you are, and I promise you, your tribe, your gang, your friends are out there. You just haven't met them yet. Maybe you have. I'm lucky enough that I have, but it took me a long time doing that because I was hanging out with people that I wanted to be like, but I wasn't. I wasn't like that. Once I started being myself, once I was kind to myself, I found my little tribe, and we might be a bunch of misfits, but we love each other. Find your tribe.
Absolutely. Now I'm going to ask you a question. And again, I'm all about celebrating. So I don't want you to mention a name or a situation that will give this away, but I want to ask the flip side of this. A situation or a time in which someone wasn't necessarily kind to you and how you were able to forge your way through this. I ask this question for those people out there who may be going through a difficult time right now, in terms of someone who is not necessarily kind to them, and how you were able to get through this personally yourself.
I can be really specific about it. I was on the Today Show with Kathy Lee and Hoda, and I'd finished a segment, and I was leaving, and my Twitter, social media was starting to blow up. Some kind, some not kind. I have a physical disability, so I have an arm that was damaged at birth. My right arm is much shorter than my left arm, and it's noticeable. Early on in my life, I'd hide it. There's no baby pictures of me or no pictures of me as a young boy where I'm not hiding this arm. It's either in my pocket or hidden. And so on the Today Show, it was sort of hanging there. Definitely looked a little odd. And people came at me and said, you have no business being on TV with a disability like that. It's very off-putting. The old Rob would have spiraled out of control. The old Rob would have heard those negative voices. The old Rob would have made that moment into a day, a week, a month of misery. I don't do it anymore. And the forward answer has really helped me to stop that. Your opinion is not a fact. Also, too, for the first time in my life, I'm comfortable talking about my arm. Richard, I've never talked about it in an interview before.
I never knew about it until I read your book.
It was almost amputated. It was not a broken arm. It was really damaged to the point where I could have lost it. And now I talk about it, and I think if you talk about what you think are your flaws before anybody else does, it takes away their power. So yes, my arm does look strange on television, and it should do, because it is different.
But don't you think it's odd that people would hone in on something like that you obviously have no control over?
I think we can be cruel, and I think that I found in my life that the people that have been the cruelest to me are in the most pain themselves. That's what I've always found. And when you can't get away from the cruelness, my superpower is empathy. It's really hard to do. When someone really mean to you, it's really hard to be kind to them. But I force myself to be kind to them, because I know the nastier they are to me, the more misery, the nastier they are to themselves. Does it excuse their behavior? Absolutely not. But you can't change it, and you gotta just sometimes walk away. As Beyonce said, put the good in goodbye.
Good advice. Good advice there. Now, the next word, of course, is smart. And if you could elaborate on that word.
Yeah, I have a chapter on smart in the book. The smartest person I ever worked with, and it's going to make you laugh a bit, is Jessica Simpson. Now, I know.
Now, I love the fact that you even begin the chapter by saying before you even met her, you had her already.
I thought she was such a dipsy doodle, and she emailed me and said, "Can I meet with you? Will you be my publicist?" I went up to meet with her at the Ritz-Carlton Hotel here on 58th Street or something, and I went up to her room. I did love it. I think I can give this away. I do in the book. When celebrities stay at hotels, they never stay under their own name. They have pseudonyms, and Jessica's was Bridget Bardot, which is not actually a good name.
Whose birthday was yesterday, so happy birthday, Bridget Bardot.
I'm trying to hide her. I said to Jessica, you should be under the name Claire Smith or something. Like, Bridget Bardot's a bigger star than you. So I went up to her room and I sat with her, and I knew within 5 minutes this was a smart, smart lady. And she plays a Dixie Blonde on TV, but she's really, really smart. And what Jess taught me is there's only one thing that makes you smart. Only one. Not university, not books. What makes you smart is your willingness to try. And when you get knocked down, you get back up. Let me promise you, smart people fail all the time, all the time. Jess said, the road to success is paved with failure. You fail. Smart people get back up. Remember, before anyone was a professional, they were an amateur. Before Bernadette Peters won that Tony Award, she was singing in a class somewhere. Before Alicia Keys won her Grammys, she was playing her piano on 42nd Street a little upright. Before J-Lo was a superstar, she was shaking her bottom in a club downtown. We all start as amateurs, and don't be frightened about that. Learn your craft. Jessica got to learn her craft out of the spotlight, and then when it came for her moment, when it came for her career to explode, she was ready for it. Jess taught me the only thing that makes you smart is your willingness to try. And I try now. I really do try. And I fail quite often. It took me six attempts to finish this book. I kept starting and failing and starting. The old Rob would have stopped. And that old Rob isn't smart. The new Rob is smart, and I finished it.
I think also in today's culture, people try out so much in the spotlight with shows like American Idol, and so you've got talent and everything. And if that failure is seen on such a massive scale, they give up.
Yeah.
And which is very sad. Pay your dues, get out there. And I love the fact that throughout this chapter, I mean, David Geffen starting out in the mailroom at the William Morris Agency, and all of these anecdotes and examples that you give. I mean, your knowledge and the research that you put in doing all this.
Of work, my friend Barry Manilow was a male guy at CBS. He played piano for every girl singer in New York, including the woman that turned out to be Bette Midler, but he did not know that when he took the job. And so you have to just keep
and a jingle singer and a jingle writer, and
absolutely keep trying. I failed a lot. I really have. And people think you're an overnight success when you make it. They don't see the hours and the years that have gone into it. Jessica once said to me, if somebody told you that your dreams won't come true for a decade. Do you still want them? Her answer was yes. My answer is yes too. Joan Rivers told me, and may she rest in peace, Joan was an early champion of my career, and we became friendly enough that I'd go up to her penthouse and have tea with her and sandwiches, and we'd sit there laughing. She told me that nobody stands in the rain longer than she does.
I'm glad you brought her up, because I want you to talk about that. The fact that she stood in the rain, and they're doing a mini series or
I know. It's really exciting. Joan Rivers, we all think of her now that she's passed as this icon. And yes, she is, but she also too was a lady that struggled. And for many years, her career was not very hot. She told me her career was so down and out that she had to do the Donald Trump Celebrity Apprentice. Like, that's why she did it. She wanted the money. She wanted to get back on TV. Joan stood in the rain longer than anybody. When people went home, when other comedians got married, when people had children, when people gave up the business, she didn't. She just kept standing in the rain. She would stand in the rain until she was soaking wet. Early on in my career, 10, 20 years ago, I would go to auditions and meet people. I'm the only one left standing. I'm not the most talented. I'm not the best looking. I'm not the funniest. But the reason I'm on TV doing celebrity news is because I didn't give up. I stood in the rain. I promise you that you've got to keep going. And if you expect to succeed on your first attempt, then maybe you don't deserve to be successful, because you've got to pay your dues. I paid mine.
I want to say to anyone out there who's listening that Joan Rivers wrote a book called Interlaughing, and it's truly have you ever read it?
Yes. Yeah.
It is truly one of the best books about the struggle of the business. It only goes up to when she got her first appearance on the Johnny Carson show. It's not about the celebrity. It's about the struggles of being an artist. And it's just an incredible book. Staying with this chapter for a moment, I want you to also talk about the moments when you were made to feel as if you didn't have the smarts.
Yeah, I grew up not feeling I was very smart. I thought smart was in your DNA. I thought you were born smart or you are born stupid. And those that were born smart were really lucky. And those that were born smart went on to get all the best jobs, which they probably should have because they're smarter than the rest of us. And it became a self-fulfilling prophecy, because when you don't think you're smart, you don't succeed. And so I used to get really dodgy grades, like grades that just wouldn't get me into a good school. My future didn't look that bright. And so I left school at 16 to go and work in a bank. My dad was a policeman. And so the dream was that I would become a policeman too. I failed the exam. So I even failed the police exam. It ended up being the best thing for me. So I went to work for this bank, and I was going to be a teller in a bank. And I just knew it wasn't my life. And so I went to night school part-time, and I got the grades I needed to get me into the next form of education. It was called sixth form. And so I went there, and then I got into university. But it was because I rejected my definition of being smart. I rejected that smart is something we're born with. Yes, does some people have more natural abilities than others? Yes, that's true. But I find most people are sort of the same. That's why when you meet somebody truly extraordinary, we call it extraordinary, because there's not that many of them. Most people in your company, in your life, we have about the same amount of talent. We have about the same amount of smartness. And so the ones that succeed and the ones that don't are the ones that don't give up, are the ones that just keep trying. Think about it in your office or your school, wherever you work, and think about the people that are really, really successful. Maybe your boss. I bet that boss is no more smart than you. I bet they got a lucky break, and I bet they kept trying. And so I figured out at a very early age that talent wasn't going to be my golden ticket, because I didn't have it. I was average, which was fine, but I had to work harder than everybody else. And then when I did make it, I realized that none of us were actually that talented. We were all okay, but we all had about the same amount of talent, and the ones that succeeded are the ones that just kept trying.
And the next quality that all of these people, including yourself, Rob, you are important.
Oh, this was a hard one for me. I never felt important, Richard. I just didn't feel like I was an important person. I didn't think I was important to me or to my friends or my family. And I'm the youngest of 5, and I sort of was in the way. And the day that I started to feel important was the day that my life changed. And it was Diddy. I worked for P. Diddy, who we sort of know as Bonham. He's our generation's Bonham. He just puts on a show. He's larger than life. And Diddy taught me that you must think about yourself as important, because once you do, you start to invest in yourself. And this is such an important part of the book. Nobody works harder than Diddy, because he believes he's important. So he's worth the investment. He works so hard. When I was working for Jon Bon Jovi, traveling the world with John gets off the private plane, doesn't go to the 5-star hotel, goes to do a sound check. This is 50 years into his career. Madonna's the same. Whether or not you like her, when Madonna lands in a city or a country to do her massive show, she does a sound check. She does the work. If Madonna can do a sound check 50 years, 40 years into her career, I can do a little bit of preparation to sit down with you. And now I do it. I don't wing it. I put in the work. Monday, when I'm on the Today Show, I will spend Sunday evening reading my book, making notes. You've got to do the work. Every successful person I've met does the work. The reason often they're late for premieres is I've been in those limos and we practice the sound bites. We practice what they're going to say to Entertainment Tonight and Access Hollywood and all those press on the carpet. And if they don't have the right sound bite by the time we get to the top of the red carpet, we go around the block. We're not getting out the car till they practice. The amount of stars I've seen literally holding a hairbrush, practicing in the mirror. It's extraordinary. They do it. So you should practice too. You should practice too. I was a publicist to Liza Minnelli for a little while. Mm-hmm. This is one of the most incredibly talented people I've met. She's actually somebody that I would argue is extraordinary. And I think it's her DNA. I really do. How could it not be? She still practiced. So if Liza had to do a show, an appearance, I'd go over to the apartment, she'd get a sound stage, a dance studio, and she would practice. So how dare we think we can wing it? No.
Absolutely.
Do the work.
I have a picture here. I think that if I can grab this picture, I think it's nearby. Maybe not. I wanted to share a picture with you. Well, Carol Channing was a very dear friend of mine.
Oh.
And she did over 5,000 performances of Hello Dolly. And she, every night before going on, she would go backwards in her script of Dolly from where the show ended up until her entrance, before she would make her entrance, so that she knew that show backwards before she walked on stage every night.
I love these stories.
That was her routine before going on stage. She knew that show. So even after all those years of doing it from 1964 until she did her final performance in 1997. Can you believe that?
I do believe it. That's why she's one of the greats. They do the work. They do the work. I've got to know Cher a little bit. Cher's a superstar. You would think now she can sing those songs in her bones, like it's not. She practices. And after this year off for celebrities too, for huge artists too, they're practicing as well. Like before Jon Bon Jovi, before Bruce Springsteen goes back out on the road, they will practice for several weeks. It is part of life, and it doesn't matter if you're singing to 20,000 people or you're working in a bank. You have to do the work. And if you don't do it, and this is a little bit of tough love, but I'm happy to say it, you don't deserve the results. Now, can you fake it? Yes, you can, but you can't fake it for very long. And that's why these people that win American Idol and these shows, that's why we don't really hear from them for very long, because it's not real. That stuff is so produced. Learn your craft. I was offered I approached iHeartRadio about doing my own morning show. So I asked them if I could do it, and they said, you're not ready. And they were right. They said, go away, practice, find yourself a smaller network, and learn your craft. There's these two amazing people in radio, Derek and Romain, and I went to work for Derek and Romain for a year for hardly any money, and I did a daily show at Derek and Romain's for a year, where I learned my craft. And then after a year, I went back to iHeart, and I did an audition. They said, now you're ready. And it was such a lesson learned. Ashley Simpson was my client, the girl that is Jessica's sister, who got caught lip syncing on SNL. The reason that went so bad is Ashley had never paid her dues. She'd never played those little bars in the East Village. She'd never learned her craft. It was a mistake. One of her first live TV shows should not have been SNL. It should have been a small local channel, or it should have not been TV at all. It should have been a bar. So when things go wrong, you've got the skill, you've got the technique, you've got the power to fix them. Make sure you do your work. People call me all the time and say, get me on the Today Show, Rob, or get me on Richard's show. And I always say no. And I'm doing you a favor. You're not ready. Go and do the work. Go and do the work when no one's watching. So by the time you sit down with Richard or Hoda or Kathy Lee, you're ready.
Well, I want to say that with all that you've done and with everything you've been, that you've taken the time to sit down and talk with me today, you made me feel important today.
You are important. And but
before,
I'm not going to saying I didn't know.
I'm sorry. What was that? You broke up.
I texted you last night. Let's be honest with everybody watching. I texted you last night, and I was so thrilled to do the show. And I was like, "Oh, how long's my segment?" Expecting to do maybe 10 minutes or so. And when you said the whole show, I got a little nervous. I didn't know if I had enough in me to do the show. So I did a little work last night. I prepared for this, but also too, you make this so easy because you've done the work. It's like a conversation with a friend in my favorite bar. It's all you. Thank you.
Well, tell them what my response to you was.
You were so kind. You told me.
I quoted from your book.
You told me my 3 words. There you go. You told me who I was. And it helped. And this morning when I brushed my teeth, I said my 3 words. And when I went into the bathroom to glue my hair on before I sat down to talk to you, I said my 3 words again. Have these words, have these 3, these 4 words. And they're like a superpower. And the next time, they work the best when you need them, when you forget who you are and you need to remind yourself. I got a little nervous. I've never done an hour talk show. I've been on shows for 6 minutes, 5 minutes, maybe 2 minutes.
Well,
and you made me feel like I could do it. Thank you.
Now, Rob, there is another word, and I purposely did not talk about that.
There's a 4th word.
Yes, we want everyone to buy the book.
There's
but one of my idols in this business was James Lipton, who had Inside the Actors Studio.
Yeah.
And he always ended his show with his list of questions. And I've got my own homage to James Lipton. So these are going to be my questions to you. And these are random. So just to have a little fun. What was now these are just go with me.
Yeah.
What is the biggest bridge that you've ever burned in this business?
Ooh. I was cruel to an incredible source of mine who was a reality star, is still a reality star. And it's somebody that you wouldn't necessarily care about because they're not a superstar. It's not a George Clooney. It's not an Angelina Jolie. But she was an incredible, helpful source. And I actually ended up becoming friends with this person. And I'd go to their house. I've had dinner with them. I've drank with them. We've had fun nights out together. And a bad story about them, which was true, came across my desk and I printed it and I should have passed. Lesson learned.
Yes, I had one of those moments too, and I regret it.
I do. I regret it today. And I don't even regret that I lost a source. I regret that I lost a friend. And I didn't realize how much I cared about this person until they wouldn't return my calls. Rightfully so. I wouldn't talk to me after that ever again. So look around and figure out all those people that you love that are friends that you would miss if they were gone, and don't mess it up. I messed it up.
Someone that's not mentioned in the book, maybe they're a celebrity, maybe they're not, but who would you think is the kindest person that you've ever known that did not make it to the book?
Oh, I hear a lot of celebrity stories, and Meryl Streep is a really kind, good person. Anybody that's been on a set with her only has really lovely, lovely things to say. Mm-hmm. Early on in my career, and I regret that I didn't include these 2 ladies, they were my first celebrity clients. And in the world of pop culture I live in, they were not as famous as the J-Los and the Alicia Keys and the Jessica Simpsons. But my first celebrity client was Michelle Lee. And Michelle Lee
wow.
was really kind to me. She really, I was a young publicist, and she dragged me around town and taught me how to do this. And another lady that changed my life, an early client of mine, was Christine Ebersole.
Wow.
And Christine Ebersole is so kind and so decent and such a wonderful person, and still in my life. I still email with Christine. I love bumping into her, and I wish I'd included them, and I didn't, because I didn't think they were as big a names as the others, which is probably true, but I wish I'd mentioned them, because the two of them at the very beginning of my career, when nobody would return my calls, they did, and they were really good, and they still are. They're good, kind people.
Well, they're mentioned here, and I love them both dearly.
Right.
What makes you the most nervous?
Ooh, not being prepared. So I'm talented enough, I'm smart enough, I'm kind enough to myself, but if I turn up unprepared, I should fail. I should. And so I hate it when I do things at the last minute. I hate it when I am too lazy to do the work, and it always shows. When I go on a TV show, a radio show, and I'm unprepared, you can see it.
Okay. What is your biggest contribution to the world?
I think I'm a nice guy. I think that I've made nice sexy. I think I've proven that you can be nice and a winner. And I get it. I do get it. Like, being cruel and interesting is very easy. It's very easy to make fun of people's weight or the way they look or the way they sound and be interesting. It's very easy. It's really hard to be interesting and kind. And that's what I try to be. I try to be interesting, someone you want to talk to, somebody that's fun. But I say all the time on my show, I'm a pinch, I'm not a punch. Like, I'm definitely naughty. I love being naughty. I like being cheeky. But I'd like to think that I'm a kind guy, and I think that I've contributed that in a world where kindness is not celebrated. Hopefully, I've made it a little bit more cool.
I love that. That's great. What are you most greedy for?
Needy?
Greedy.
Greedy. Oh, a piece of pie. I can. Oh my goodness, I've got a sweet tooth. I love to eat, and I still do eat. Like, I don't skip desserts, but I've had to, as I get older, figure out if I'm gonna have that piece of pie, I've got to go to the gym or a walk today. While I was writing the book, I lost 40 pounds.
Oh, good for you.
I lost 40 pounds in the last year while I was writing this book, and what I learned from that is that all those years I've been trying to lose weight by going to the gym, by doing physical stuff. It wasn't physical, it was all mental. It was all baggage I carried. I didn't feel like I was important enough to be skinny. I just didn't feel like I was important enough to be in good shape. And now I am. And so, I'd still like a piece of pie though.
Okay. What makes you lose your temper most?
Ooh, I hate rude people, particularly people that are rude to waiters or people that are easier targets. Like, I always, if I have to fight, I always punch up. I never, ever punch down. And if I'm out with somebody and you're rude to a waiter, a maitre d', that dinner, that drinks ends really, really quickly. I hate rudeness. I hate it.
Oh, good for you. What one natural thing would you most like to see?
One natural, give me an example.
Like Niagara Falls.
Oh, sorry, what? I'd love to see Liza Minnelli live one more time. And to me, she's Niagara Falls. She's the star.
I think that we ran into each other at the Beacon Theater, didn't we? Yes, we did.
I love her, and she's a force of nature. And I hope, I pray I get to see her one more time, even if it's her sitting at a piano bench in a school club. I will be there. Traveling around the world with Bon Jovi and different clients, I'm lucky enough. I've seen miracles. I've seen the most beautiful places in the world, the most awesome natural phenomenons. There's nothing more awesome than Liza Minnelli.
I agree. I'm with you on that one. And my last question to you is, what's the furthest that you've ever pushed yourself physically?
Ooh, I have. It's a quote, actually, and I think it really makes sense. Diddy once said to me, if you are chasing your dreams, you're not running fast enough. Your dreams are closer than you think, and you can run much faster than you ever thought. And so where I've pushed myself physically is to go after those dreams. So I didn't believe that I could go for a walk for an hour each day because I didn't get off the couch. And so when the pandemic started, I would just walk around the block, and then 2 blocks, and then 3 blocks. And now I go for a walk every day from my apartment all the way up to the Intrepid. And it used to be awesome. And now it's just my daily life. You can do it. Chase your dreams. They're not that far away.
Well, Rob, I am so glad that you pushed yourself to do an hour with me today.
It was never you. It was me.
I got to tell you, last night, I mean, two things that I want to mention here. And first of all, tomorrow afternoon at 3 o'clock, I was scheduled to interview Sarah Dash.
Ooh.
Yes. I interviewed her a year ago tomorrow. I'm going to tear up for this. And she reached out to me about a month ago and said, Richard, let's do this again. And we scheduled this date. And she unfortunately passed away on the 20th. And I'm going to honor our date. And I'm going to still do a show celebrating her tomorrow with a few of her friends that are going to show up. So if you can tune in tomorrow afternoon at 3 o'clock, it's not to mourn her. It's to celebrate her. Carpe diem. Live your life to the fullest. That's what this book is all about. It's celebrating each and every moment. It's celebrating each other. It's celebrating all of us. And I will say this, I did have a stress test this morning. And Rob, who I love and adore, and I've loved this book, when I got his message last night, how long is my segment? I thought, I've got to talk him off of that ledge. I've got to get him to say, my goal and my hope, and please tell me I succeeded in this, is to make this hour feel like 20 minutes. And if I can do that, I have succeeded today. So that was my goal.
You,
so,
my friend, said it felt like 5-10 minutes with a dear friend. I think that's the success of this show, is that it's a real conversation. It's no gotchas. And I really enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
Don't go any for a moment. I want to say one thing. Thank you all for being here. Before you all leave, first of all, I don't take for granted that you could have been anywhere else for the past hour. And the fact that you chose to spend it with us, and I'm sure I can speak for Rob when I say this, I don't take for granted. So thank you for being here. If this is your first time here, my hope is that you will subscribe to Richard Skipper Celebrates. I've done over 300 of these interviews. Go and check those out and check out the ones that are ahead of us. You can also subscribe to my newsletter. It comes out every Monday morning at 10 a.m. Just go to richardskipper.com, sign up for it. I guarantee you no spamming. You'll get one newsletter once a week, and it's like a TV guide. It will tell you who's coming up that week. After the show, leave a comment here to let us know how we did today, and share this with your friends. I also, like Princess Diana, I always end every show by telling everyone to go out and do something nice for somebody else without expecting anything in return. This is what I would like you all to do today. I want you to go to Amazon.com and I want you to order 2 copies of this book. You're going to keep 1 copy for yourself. And then you're going to go to your Facebook page. And the second name that pops up, you're going to send that person a copy of this book. And you're going to write in this book what that person means to you. And you're going to tell them that they're kind and that they're smart and that they are important. And then you're going to go and you're also ... and they can fill in the blank.
One less.
So yes, because all of us are important and we've got to get that message across. And now, Rob, I'm going to leave the screen and I'm going to give you the final word. You've got the screen to yourself. Anything that you want to say about anything that we talked about today that you want to expound upon, or anything that we didn't talk about that you wish we had, or just any message that you want to put out to anyone who's watching right now. I thank you for the gifts that you've given to the world and the gifts that you're going to continue to give by this book. And by this time tomorrow, what did you say that you were today on the list?
What, my words today, or what's it?
What number were you on the list today?
Number 11 on Amazon.
You're going to be at number 1 by this time tomorrow. That's my wish. I love you, Rob. I'm going to
love you. Thank you so much.
All yours.
Doing this, Richard. One of the great guys out there. decent and kind. And as much as he is encouraging you to support me and my book, which I'm terribly, terribly grateful for, let's all support Richard. I've been watching this show for a long time. The amount of work, the amount of effort, the amount of expense it goes to not only host these shows, but produce them so beautifully is extraordinary. So let's support our dear friend Richard, and thank you all for being so kind to me. I can't wait to get your 4 words. I want to know who you are in 4 words. Take care.